Hey everybody, Off the Mic Sports Network here. Welcome to another edition of Off the Top Rope. Thanks everybody for tuning in. Big week for pro wrestling. A lot going on. The word oversaturated has been thrown around a lot because WWE, I think, overplayed their hand a little bit here in saying, "Hey, we're going to counter program AEW." And we're going to put on 3 shows over the course of a weekend that AEW really owned. I don't like that AEW kind of, backed themselves out of, going head to head against Saturday night's main event, whatever. I don't think WWE needed to put the NXT show on that they did. Um, it's very clear what was at hand here. And pettiness and greed really comes to mind for me in terms of what I think WWE really was trying to accomplish. And, um, I get it. Competition is great. It brings out the best in us. But at the same time, I think WWE, by being petty, by trying to, stick one up to Tony Khan, who in some people's eyes may deserve it, um, this wasn't the right weekend to do this. Like, I get it. You want to counter program things. You don't want to put the pressure on AEW because hey, AEW may be a little bit vulnerable and whatnot. But this whole oversaturation thing and making because if you wanted to make this an actual competition, book a better NXT show than you did. Book a better NXT show than you did. Because let's be real, the most significant match to happen on that show is probably the tag match with Fatal Influence against Blake Monroe and Jordan Grace. That's the most significant match on the show because you have a contract signing. To my knowledge, the North American title is not being defended. The Women's North American Championship, Sol Ruka is defending that. And the NXT Championship is being defended again by Obafemi against a guy we know he's going to beat in Yoshiki Inamura. So if you were going to present us with like some sort of competition and try to make this more of a battle, then you would have done this. And it just, like I said, it was one thing when Saturday night's main event became a thing. Then Evolution came out there, which was odd because we had heard that it was going to be the week before. But then when when All In Texas, ultimately was out of that, 8 p.m. Eastern normal spot because they knew that Saturday night's main event was going to go there. And I don't think they should have done that. But then WWE upped their ante again and did NXT Great American Bash. And they haven't bothered to book a very good show. They're charging $250 a ticket at Center Stage, which is only a 1,000 seat venue. The tickets are not selling particularly well. It might be a decent enough show, but there's no reason that WWE and NXT have given us enough to care to watch that overall in. There's no reason for that. And so in that respect, why did you just have to go all the way out in literally, considering it's All In weekend, why did WWE have to go all in with this method of just like, hey, we're going to oversaturate the market. We're going to literally put every single kind of wrestling product out there. And we're going to basically, at a certain point, just tire out our fans to the point where, hey, our fans are not going to have enough money to go to these events. The attendance is going to go down. And at the end of the day, I think this worked against WWE because if you look at this whole thing in totality, look, Saturday night's main event is going to be fine. I think Evolution can push towards maybe about 10,000 tickets. Some people may look at that as a failure. I still think that's pretty incredible. And given the lack of, time that they had, they actually put together a pretty solid card for Evolution. But Evolution is kind of just like a tag on with everything else. And it should have its own weekend. So by doing this whole package of events over the course of a weekend, you've made yourselves look petty. You've made AEW actually look good in the court of public opinion because, hey, like, listen, they're going to put on, I think they're going to probably put on one of the better shows of the weekend because they have a lot of talent on that show. Some of their main matches are really interesting to me. Those gauntlet matches will be good. yeah, maybe there's not a lot of build to them, but it's just initially I was fine with WWE actually going out of their way to counter program because I was like, competition brings out the best in us. But then I've sort of seen what WWE has done really in this battle, I guess you could say. And the huge issue that I have is Goldberg and Gunther has gotten the most play out of anything this entire weekend. That's the most noteworthy thing. So your biggest thing, your biggest selling point for that entire weekend, let's call it what it is. The evolution thing really, there's matches that have been built over the course of time, but on television in the recency, if we're talking recency bias, it's really, Becky Lynch, Lyra Valkyria, and Bayley, which I think has an argument to main event the show. It probably won't because I think it's going to end up being Io Sky and Rhea Ripley. The way that they positioned and showed the card, that was the last match that was shown. So I would expect that to be the main event. But Goldberg and Gunther was the main selling point of this entire fucking weekend. 58-year-old Goldberg. And yes, I understand he is still over and getting things because the nostalgia thing. This is one of the main reasons why I don't think that Goldberg should win the world championship. But if that's your biggest selling point going up against All In Texas, what was the point of doing this? Because now you're doing a disservice to the rest of your roster. You're doing a disservice to the rest of your fans. You're dividing the fan base. You're feeding into tribalism. Like, to me, after looking at this and seeing how this whole situation played out, I think WWE ended up actually looking kind of bad in this whole situation. Like, I understand they'll end up making, the money that they want to, but you didn't need to go to these lengths to just bury AEW. Like, I'm hard on AEW as anybody. And even I think that this was really unnecessary, just seeing the way that this played out. Because, listen, Great American Bash in the large scale of professional wrestling is an irrelevant show. It shouldn't have happened. There was no need for this show to happen. Because, like I said, your NXT title match means nothing. Your women's championship isn't even being defended on that show. You got the North American Championship being defended on that show. And, there's a contract signing for another company's championship on that show. It's basically a Saturday afternoon edition of NXT just on a Saturday. Like, that's all it is. And then, Saturday night's main event, you've got 3 matches announced. Granted, all of them look pretty solid. We've seen Randy Orton and Drew McIntyre. LA Knight and Seth Rollins should be great. I would expect Roman Reigns to possibly be back on Saturday because it is in Atlanta. And we obviously know Roman's got a lot of, upbringing being from Georgia Tech. You guys remember the whole thing at Bad Blood and like the whole hype up between him and Cody teaming up. So I think him returning in Atlanta would make a ton of sense against Seth Rollins. So that's something. And then Goldberg and Gunther. And even then, like, it's still, why even go to these lengths to just like have this on the same weekend? Because especially when you translate it over to the women's side of things, I think they've done a huge disservice to the women's division by, just all this counter programming and oversaturation and just, people getting tired. The women deserve their own weekend. They deserve their own weekend. And it sounds like they were going to get it at Mohegan Sun this past weekend on July 5th. That sounds like what the report was. And they didn't end up doing it for whatever reason. And I think I know the reason is they wanted to be petty and they wanted to try and sing and they wanted to try and bury AEW. And it'd be one thing if it was like some sort of nondescript pay-per-view. Even then, it still would have looked bad. But to do it all in weekend and then not even bother to try to really put together a compelling wrestling show, that bothers me, okay? And listen, like I said, everybody thinks I am a Fed drone. Everybody thinks that I live, eat, sleep, breathe everything WWE, and I'm going to say everything positive. I got to call it like I see it. WWE comes across as incredibly petty and incredibly lazy with the way that they handled this. Because, like I said, if you really wanted to do something and make something, why not do this like next weekend? Why not do this next weekend? Why? I mean, I understand. I can kind of understand why that you wouldn't want, like, if you would have done it next weekend, or hell, like, you could have waited to do, you could have waited. I mean, Saturday night's main event, okay, but you could have waited very easily to do Evolution at another point. NXT Great American Bash did not need to happen this weekend. It's just overkill. They have done overkill, and I think in the grand scheme of things, I think I take this a little bit as a win for AEW, because all in all, they should have the best wrestling show of the entire weekend. They should. And if not, something's really wrong considering the level of talent that they got on that show. So I just think the overkill and all this other stuff, the oversaturation, whatever you want to call it, it's really made WWE look bad. So we'll see how it all plays out. I'm still yet to be determined how I'm going to handle, like, the post-show stuff. If I'm going to go live after All In, if I'm going to go live after that and Saturday night's main event and do a dual review, or if I'm just going to throw up a bunch of videos. I'm still yet to be determined on how I'm going to handle this. I will be watching Evolution live. I doubt I will be doing a live watch along. I haven't really seen a lot of a benefit to that. But I will probably do some sort of reaction immediately after that show, because I anticipate that to be a pretty solid show, even though the women, I think, kind of got their legs cut out from underneath them with the way that this was just kind of thrown together. And some people and I need to talk about this in a second, because some people just mischaracterize me with something I put out on social media on Monday night. But we'll talk about that at another point. But WWE didn't really need to do this. They didn't. Could have very easily just left well enough alone. You could have maybe just had Saturday night's main event go up against it. You didn't have to throw these other shows in there. I think it's really just hurt WWE more than it helped it. They'll still make their money, but in the court of public opinion, I think this does not look really good or reflect very good on WWE. Anyway, thanks so much for watching. I'll see you guys soon. Bye-bye.